I've been asking, why is our currency decimated? Why is our currency on the receiving end in regards to other global currencies? Honorable Speaker, for the last 11 times that the Federal Reserve has met, that is the Federal Reserve of the US, they have consistently been raising interest rates. In January of 2022, the Federal Reserve rate in the US was in the band of 0% to 0.25%. They have then raised interest rates for 11 consecutive times, up to now the band of 5.25% to 5.5%. How is that related to the Kenyan shilling? Honorable Speaker, what has happened when the US raises interest rates, there is capital flight from all the other emerging economies like Kenya and the rest. And therefore, we have seen a lot of capital outflows from emerging economies like Kenya. Of course, the investors going into the US where they don't need to worry about currency devaluation. Honorable Speaker, the second thing is the regime of the central bank. Honorable Speaker, the central bank has three critical areas that it needs to do other than regulation of the financial institutions. And the critical role of the central bank is to set prices. And there are three categories of prices. One, there is prices of commodities, which we call inflation. Then there is the price of money, which we now use interest rates. But then there is the price of the domestic currency, which is forex or exchange rate, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, the regime of the central bank affects how the domestic currency or the direction it takes. For the past 6 years, we have seen in Kenya that the central bank, whereas we are known that Kenya has a floating exchange rate regime where it is a matter of demand and supply, within that floating regime, there are two categories. There is the managed exchange rate regime, which is floating, but also there is independent. For the last 6 years, Honorable Speaker, Kenya adopted a managed independent a managed floating regime, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, what we used to do, we could offload our dollars when we could see our shilling is weakening. And therefore, we were able to manage our local currency, although artificially. Honorable Speaker, the current regime is that of independent, so that the shilling gets its true value in relation to other global currencies. Honorable Speaker, some members would then ask, why is also the shilling losing against, for example, the UGX, the Ugandan shilling, or the Tanzanian shilling? But Honorable Speaker, if you check the economic data of the Ugandan shilling versus the Kenyan shilling, the Tanzanian shilling versus the Kenyan shilling, you realize we are at the same level we were during Kibaki's time, around 2010 or thereabout. Why? Because now when the shilling finds its true value, then it is able to relate with other currencies independently. And Honorable Speaker, that is the main reason that we have seen some devaluation in the Kenyan shilling as it fights its grounding in an independent floating regime. Honorable Speaker, with those many words, I really want to thank all the members of this House. The Budget and Appropriations Committee always benefit greatly.
And I'll be very brief. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee for a job well done. When I was listening to him, Mr. Speaker, I thought I was listening to the Minister for Finance. And I tried to look around to see whether he was reading from something, and apparently he was speaking from his mind. That is the way to go. But Mr. Speaker, I have 2 points. Number one, the increase for the Ministry of Education is well guided. We must have enough money for our JSS schools because the program that we started the other day, and it must work. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the increase in the amount of money given to the agricultural sector, and particularly, Mr. Speaker, as I come from the cane-growing regions of Western Kenya, the money that will be used to pay arrears for farmers for public-owned mills. that I want to commend the Budget Committee for that decision. Mr. Speaker, I'm a little bit worried about the cane testing units. And I want to find out, Mr. Speaker, of these cane testing units which have been put in various sugar factories in the country really working? We must ask the question, because we are giving about 400 million for cane testing units, Mr. Speaker. I want to beseech the chairman of the Appropriations Committee and my chairman in Agriculture to find out whether these cane testing units are working. And finally, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. We are having a supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, against the backdrop where the country doesn't have a medium-term plan. One wonders how we can manage our economy without a medium-term plan. We are 11 months into the year without a medium-term plan. So the numbers probably we are talking about are flying all over the air. Mr. Speaker, listen to the chairman of budget talk about other economies. It's good to compare ourselves with the other economies. But it only goes as far as to give direction on how we need to manage our economy. The fact that the Federal Reserve has increased the interest rates of the USA for a number of times is not a reason for Kenya not to manage its economy better. Thank you. Yes. It's no reason for Kenya not to manage its economy better. We are in a situation where the interest rates are high, and the reason why our shilling is depreciating against the international strong currencies is because our imports are falling short of, our exports are falling short of imports. In other words, we are consuming more imports than exports. Why are our exports falling short of imports? The reason is our main exports like agriculture, tea, coffee, horticulture are falling. Why are they falling? It's because the Kenyan...
Your time is up.
And Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to first congratulate the Budget and Appropriations Committee for banning the midnight oil and delivering this supplementary budget on time. What needs to be spoken, Mr. Speaker, because we can't go into the details in 3 minutes, is the style and manner in which the BAC approached budgeting this year. Mr. Speaker, the involvement of members of parliament, and especially the chairs of committees, was something unprecedented. We have to commend the new style and approach that has been adopted by the Finance Committee that is very inclusive and very considerate of the issues that are coming out from the members. As a member of parliament representing a Nairobi constituency, Mr. Speaker, we do appreciate that in this budget, we have been able to put in 1 billion Kenya shillings, monies that is being transferred into the planning ministry so that it can be appropriated through the CDF so that we can expand our primary schools in this city. Mr. Speaker, the primary schools in Nairobi have come to a state where some of them have been condemned as unfit for human occupation. Some schools that last were attended to in the era of the Nairobi City Commission. Some were attended in the era of the Nairobi City Council. Some were attended in the eras of Mayor Margaret Kenyatta. This is the time, Mr. Speaker, that we get the opportunity to bring up some of these schools up to standard. Mr. Speaker, the investment in the digital space is also commendable, Mr. Speaker, that the digital economy and the ICT sector did get a small boost with an improvement of the monies that have been appropriated to this sector. So, Mr. Speaker, I do call upon members of parliament to take the opportunity and honor the pledges that they made at the Kamkunji that you convened so that we can have digital innovation hubs in each and every single ward of this country. These digital innovation hubs, Mr. Speaker, are impressive. The few that have already been put up are already converting learners into earners. Young people who are walking into our TVETs, getting the digital literacy skills getting trained on how to be able to work on online jobs and earning in dollars. Mr. Speaker, I will want to end it here by associating myself with the words of the chair that KU does produce brilliant minds, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Masinde and the other lady who has been supporting this committee are well known to me as extremely brilliant minds. And Mr. Speaker, there is a case to be made for the generational conversation that the people who are running the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker, are of a certain average age. When you look at the chair of budget, look at the chair of finance, look at Daktari and the people who are working, this is a generation that needs to make its mark akin to the generation of the Mwai Kibakis, the Kenneth Matibas, the Martin Shikukus, who are able to bring up a Kenya that was so brilliant in the 60s and the 70s that it was recognized all over. We are seeing a situation where we are bringing up leaders of a new generation that will make this country the envy of the people around this region, in the East African region, the envy of Africa, and the envy of the world. Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Joseph Oyula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to also support the
Screen, I see you exclaiming. Are you ready for this?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to first thank the chair of this budget and appropriation and his members for the work well done, and to also appreciate the fact that he went to Kenyatta University. Those are great brains. I also went to the same university. So I'm here to appreciate this budget. Now, when it comes to the side of agriculture, I was trying to look at the tea sector, and I was wondering how much has been added to it, but I am made aware that the side of fertilizers is where the tea farmers will benefit from. For the coffee, 4 billion is good money, and the reforms will support many of our coffee farmers. Kericho, we have coffee, and the farmers had left coffee because the payment was very low. With this increase, I am sure coffee farmers will smile all the way to the bank. But I feel more money should have been allocated, Honorable Speaker, to tea farming. Milk, Honorable Speaker, the new KCC, having been added 1.5p, is very, very important. And I know many of our farmers will benefit from that, small and large-scale farmers. For the education sector to have 70 billion is a great achievement. We are investing for today and tomorrow. And I appreciate this committee for that, Honorable Speaker. Not to forget that the money allocated to affirmative action, which is more on the sanitary towels, will be a plus now that it is domiciled not in the side of Ministry of Education, but in affirmative ministry, gender ministry. I appreciate that, Honorable Speaker. So with that, I say this is good, but I believe when it comes to implementation, it will be done to the later, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kutoa sauti yangu katika makadirio ambayo yameletwa hapa bungeni ya nyongeza.